Classical Indian painting, the great mural tradition again, in caves, temples, forts, and palaces. This is part 4 of 5 DVDs. Murals were also painted in various temples in Kerala, probably from the 700s on, but nothing remains as evidence from so early. For the Chera-style murals dating from the late 1600s, we will visit 4 Shiva temples in 3 different districts, then 3 wooden palaces in different places, including Cochi. And we'll finish up with 8 round Nataraja mural paintings from various temples with some interesting prose and poetry to go with them. The Pandya and Chola empires controlled most of Tamil country, while the Chera Kings were in the west along the coast and down to the tip of India. In fact, the name Chera became Kera and then evolved into Kerala. The 3 districts of Kerala with the oldest murals are Thrissur, originally Thrissur, Kottayam, and Alappuzha, once called Alleppey. Cochi is central to them. The very oldest paintings are on dry lime plaster over stone. So the temples first, then the palaces. There are 4 of them, or entrances to, 4 Shiva temples, each with only 1 or 2 good paintings. Vadakkunatha, Trivanchikulan, Pallimanna and Chemmanthatta. Dravidian architecture of the Cholas influenced early Kerala styles, with high rising gopurams or gateways, but later the lower single-story structures became more the norm for the newer temples. Practically all the paintings are religious. A magnificent Vishnu in his majestic form, mainly frontal, but his eyes are averted toward the right, so it's not iconic. 4 arms and hands, holding a magic discus and ritual conch, his symbols. It dates to 1691, by an obviously very accomplished artist. These murals were meant for telling religious stories. Here's a most unusual Nataraja in this temple. It was rediscovered recently under many layers of soot and incense, having 20 arms, not just 16 as they previously thought. Just publicized in 2010, it's said to be a reclining Nataraja, arms in motion, not his feet. Reclining Nataraja. Another grand Vishnu, seated and bestowing blessings. Just 2 arms, thick ones. For some reason, it has been common in Kerala to paint Vaishnavite themes in Shaivite temples, Vishnu stories in Shiva temples. 2 of his attendants next to him. They seem rather pensive, with hands by their mouths. Quite incredible detail, really. Kerala prospered from the 1400s on due to the spice trade with the Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British. The wealth gained from trading aided temple building and mural painting. Krishna is here with his flute. Kindly smile, thick muscular body, typical in Kerala. He too seems to be looking away from the viewer. A very nice peacock. This is a more unusual non-religious subject for Kerala. Most of the paintings in these temples have vanished with time. Very skillful brushwork. In Kottayam district, there is the Ettumanoor Mahadeva Temple, also a Shiva temple. The several murals, called Dravidian often, are on long walls just inside the gopuram or main entrance or gateway. I knew what they looked like, most of them anyway, seen in books, but I did not expect to find this soft and foggy appearance due to incense and pollution. Vishnu reclining on the great serpent Sesha. His feet, supported by devotee. This is him, improved by my computer. There was natural daylight bounced in from the sunlit courtyard between the gateway and the central temple. The strongest light was from the left, as we see here. Notice the small-sized sages and devotee at the left. The hazy imagery is greatly improved here. The precise detailing and coloring is quite remarkable. Vishnu's eyes look more toward the heavens, perhaps, not toward the viewer, as an icon would have it. Still more for storytelling and devotion. A happy and blissful Vishnu. Quite on the contrary, another smoky-looking image is Shiva in his fierce Bhairava form. I certainly did not expect that. Improved a good bit here. As usual, he is ornamented with twisted serpents, which serve as earrings, bracelets, anklets, and sacred thread. He frowns with angry eyes and sharp tiger's teeth and flaming hair. Bhairava wears a tiger skin for pants, and in his 4 hands he carries a noose, a trident, drum, and skull. In this fierce and terrifying form, Shiva is so much like the goddess Kali. Bhairava. Perhaps the best is the great Nataraja in his dance, the Ananda Tandava, but looking even more obscure than the others. 14 arms in motion as he dances on top of a demon who symbolizes ignorance. His hands hold weapons like a bow, an arrow, a sword, and a blazing mace, and ritual symbols like a trident, a divine bell, apocalyptic fire, and a tall staff in front with his mount, little Nandi the bull, at the top of his big staff. His rather coppery, matted hair seems to have flames shooting out, but he still looks calm and joyful. One admirer has written that the mural is simply superb in its ability to evoke the feelings of awe and courage in the viewer's mind. The smiling, happy devotees, sages, and musicians all around are quite a rich addition to this Nataraja. And even animals. Ananda Tandava, creation, evolution, preservation, support, destruction, evolution, illusion, release, emancipation, and grace. One hand holds the sacred drum of creation of the heavens and earth. One hand holds the sacred fire of transformation. One foot suppresses the demon of ignorance and suffering, and his lifted foot grants eternal bliss to devotees, seen as a masterpiece of Kerala mural art. In another area of this temple, a different artist, it seems, painted on wooden panels. Hunters in a forest with their spears, knives, and a horn, and a dog. After wild animals, of course. Bodies thick and muscular. Here, naughty boy Krishna is perched up in the tree, while the poor gopis down below plead with him to return their clothes, which he had stolen while they went swimming. They are painted very full-bodied and tall, and quite unself-conscious in their nudity. Likely a male artist's delight in doing a religious painting. In Alappuzha district, the small Pundareekpuram Temple has the best preserved paintings of the area. This is more typical of later temple architecture in Kerala. This is a Vishnu temple with many Krishna stories portrayed. Baby Krishna with his foster mother Yashoda. Strong, bold colors, but not many. His foster father Nanda holds him on his lap, along with his foster brother Balarama. Krishna is usually portrayed dark-skinned. Notice Nanda's interesting fabric headdress, with square dotted lines that are echoed elsewhere in many places, a sense of rhythm. The demoness Putana came as a beautiful woman to poison young Krishna, but he jumped on her and knocked her down. And he proceeded to suck the poison out of her breast, and she reverted back to her ugly demoness self and died. The boldness and accuracy of the lines is an important characteristic here too. As Krishna grew up, his very lyrical playing on the flute drew the gopis of the village to admire and love him. Such refined and precise imagery on dry wall plaster. Here's the naked gopis again, trying to climb the tree where Krishna kept their clothes. Looks like a different artist here, not so skilled. A bearded sage and devotees with hands folded in worship. All available space filled in. Brahmins on a pilgrimage with their porters. Some have their bare-breasted wives along, some young and voluptuous, even one very old, but all very high class. We see 3 different areas here, Each cell, in a way, is defined by an artistic rope of sorts. Makes the storytelling easier, I guess. That and the well-tailored jackets of the baggage carriers at the top are carryovers from earlier Jain art. And another erotic image, unusual for the late 1700s through the early 1800s, as here a Nayika, an experienced heroine, looking at her sexual self in a mirror, putting the dot on her forehead, a rare, non-religious portrayal. There is so much color, movement, rhythm, and expression here at Pundareekpuram Temple. The Vaikom Temple, a Shiva one, has a couple of much later murals dating to the late 1800s. Its entry gate has some blue, perhaps reflecting the unusual blue in the art. The murals are here. Vishnu sitting atop Garuda, his great bird mount, with his arms around his two wives. Garuda has a sharp but curved beak and wings out at each side. Well defined, strongly muscular, very dramatic. A heavy-set Shiva in the center, with his bow and trident-headed arrow, and two supporters, ready to be a hunter, as a Kera the hunter. These later drawings are not as subtle or refined as in most others that we've seen, but are very large, mostly martial, showing power and meant to impress the viewer. Shiva's wife, Parvati, is pretty ample of body too. These murals are especially representational, but quite lacking in aesthetic subtlety, as in both drawing and coloring. Bold and valiant. Further inside the compound, I found the central temple to be circular, with very modern murals painted and wooden panels all around. And all the other wood is painted too. So the religious murals blend together with the painted wood. The highlighting with blue and white I found interesting, but I could not get any information about these. Now the palaces. 3 Chera-style murals in wooden palaces. In Cochi, Krishnapuram and Padmanabhapuram, deep south. There are 3 wooden palaces with murals, all dating from the mid-1700s. In Cochi, the Mattancherry Palace was constructed in 1555 by the Portuguese, actually, and later gifted to the King of Cochin, and later renovated by the Dutch. So it's often called the Dutch Palace. It's looked after by the Archaeological Survey of India. The wording begins, "The glory of the palace lies in its mural paintings." Built entirely of wood, several rooms of the palace are covered with paintings, supported by Travancore rulers. The earliest murals are in a large upper room called the Royal Bedchamber, up the steps. Much of the art here illustrates the Ramayana. Rama, in his fury and bravery, shoots an arrow toward the evil 10-headed Ravana. And the terrorized Ravana fires back and will die from Rama's arrow, of course. The fierceness of this great battle, it is said, is unmatched by any other mural art in all of India. All space well detailed and filled in. A happy bearded sage officiates here to crown a contented Rama as king and Sita as queen upon their return from exile. Stylistically, the art in this room is seen as the best. The use of shading is quite remarkable. Another happy sage completes the ceremony, reaching over the head of Queen Sita. The early tradition continues here since hundreds of years, seen in the beards of the sages in strong, bright colors. Here's Vishnu on his 5-headed serpent, Sesha. We notice the more central vertical gold crown, surrounded in a way by a reddish halo of sorts. These painted crowns have a striking resemblance to the dramatic ones used in Kerala's traditional costumes for their Kathakali dance. Shiva and Parvati with devotees. Lavish ornamentation of all available space is still quite the style. In other rooms, more thinly painted panels seem to date from a bit later. but many are crafted in a very excellent way. Some murals appear quite sexual, religiously sexual of course, based on the religious stories. Lots of bare-breasted ladies. The revival of the Hindu Bhakti movement before and during this time had much to do with the enthusiasm for these devotional murals. They represent a very complex and evolved state of artistic development. To finish with Mattancherry Palace, I want to read the text of the traditional Kerala technique of making murals. First, lime and sandplaster mixed with a well-ground nut from a kaduka tree is applied to a wall about a centimeter thick and dried. Second, another thinner layer is put on, about 2 millimeters, and dried. Finally, a very thin layer of white lime with coconut water and dried. Painting comes next. Rough sketching is done with some kind of pencil or crayon, and then outlines are firmed up with strong black lines. Colors come next, one after another. Colors of the characters has to be in accord with their virtues or status. Final outlines are redone in black. 3 types of brushes are used: flat ones with hair from behind a calf's ear, medium ones with hair from a goat's belly, and very thin ones with delicate blades of grass. So, simplicity of subjects, technical excellence, bold but delicate strokes, and especially a few very bright colors, graceful yet very dynamic expressions. Mattancherry Palace, highly stylized masterpieces of Kerala mural art. Another palace called Krishnapuram Palace is near the south coast of Kerala in Kayamkulam. It was used as a summer palace by the Kayamkulam rulers. The walls of the veranda have only a couple paintings in a very poor, hazy condition, but kept in an archaeological museum within the palace. There are 5 images in this first one. They do get better. Gajendra Moksham means the moksha or salvation of the elephant king Gajendra. It's the largest single mural painting in Kerala, 3 meters high, nearly 10 feet, over 49 square meters overall. This is the top part. Here a little better. It shows the sequence of the elephant saluting Lord Vishnu in devotion, having been rescued from an attack by the crocodile at the right. Vishnu rides on his Garuda bird mount with huge wings. And a lot better here, thanks to computers. Blue-skinned Vishnu was the family deity of the Kayamkulam rulers. Here, other minor gods, goddesses, and saints look on. Even sharper in detail, Vishnu is smiling. This mural was placed prominently at the entrance to the palace from the pond to enable the kings to worship the deity after their daily ablutions. And here a bit closer. He has 8 arms, which are visually surpassed in a way by the strong linearity of Garuda's great wings. Amazing emotional expression in Kerala figures. As one historian noted, there is never a dull moment in their theatrical world. The only other important painting, now improved, is Vishnu as Krishna, the divine cowherd, here receiving homage from 2 ladies of the ruling Kayamkulam party. They and the 2 devotees at the left are drawn as large as Krishna. Fairly elegant fabrics. And the last important palace in Kerala is the Padmanabhapuram Palace, all of wood, dating from 1550. It's in the very southern part of Tamil Nadu, next to Kanniiyakumara, but with murals done in the Chera style. All paintings date to the 1700s and are considered the best of the 3 palaces. The murals are in the central 4-story building of the rambling complex. Above the ground floor, the royal treasury, and then the Trivanchikulan king's bedrooms, and then the king's resting and study rooms, and at the top floor was the worship chamber of the royal household. The exquisite murals are here. When I was there as a tourist, no one could go up to see them, but most were copied and mounted in a long hallway, and my camera was permitted here. Scenes from the Puranas, and from the social life of the Travancore rulers at the time. Here, because it was the worship room, the gods are icons and are not engaged in narrative action. There's Vishnu on snake Sesha at the left. All the interior walls are painted as if in a temple or shrine room of the gods. All images are strictly framed, not flowing into each other. Notice the right wall. Vishnu lies on five-headed Sesha in a most unusual stylized posture. Gods and sages look on from above. His two wives are below. A lotus flower emerges upward from his navel, and god Brahma sits on top of it. Interesting straight-line abstraction of the coils of the striped snake, which quite surround the images. Padmanabhapuram means the land where the lotus flower bloomed. One of Vishnu's wives with different color enhancement and a sage with beard is worshipping her. The abstracted and straight coils of Sesha fill up space all around. Overall, it's a bit coarsely crafted. Facing this great Vishnu on Sesha is Lakshmi, encircled and sitting on a lotus, while the royal priest, the Maharaja, the Maharani, and other family members pay homage, and celestials watch from above. This seems of a different style in drawing and coloring, more sensitive and lyrical somehow. This next painting too, a superb Mother Yasoda, face in profile, nursing baby Krishna. This has been said to be one of the most beautiful paintings of women in South India. Alertness as well as a delicate expression of tenderness. A strong Vishnu holding a lotus with his two wives, Bhudevi and Sridevi, also holding lotuses, with his serpent Sesha protecting him from above and behind. Lips tend to be thick, eyebrows exaggerated, hand gestures with running curves, not angular, but the snake coils are straight, angular. Back now to the more usual Chera style in Kerala. Another Vishnu on Sesha, floating on the ocean of milk in a more normal mode. Same palace, likely different artist. Venugopala Krishna with 6 arms, but fluting with 2 of them. But he is being bathed from water jars poured from above him, most unusual and complex, all space well ornamented. The essential rhythm portrayed in most bodies is quite remarkable in Chera art. Ganesh Puja, with devotees bringing grains, bananas, and cooking food for offerings. Musicians and dancers. All very frontal, flat art, no depth. A very exquisite Krishna. Very elaborate headdresses and embellishment, jewels, beads, bright, so vibrant. A musical quality seems to pervade the painting, the ambience of being in the forest with Krishna of Vrindavan. A larger view of the same. The gopis surround him full of expression. Interesting variations of skin color. This highly decorated Chera style has very oval faces and exaggerated eyes, wonderful fabrics. More gopis again, fully Chera. Evidence of the taste of Martandavarma, one of Kerala's greatest rulers in the 1700s. He was a great aesthete and patron of poets and of scholars as well. Shiva here is seated on his throne with his son Kartikeyan, below at the left. Large, voluminous male figures, muscular, highly ornamented, even similar hairstyles and dress, typical of this Kerala art. And Parvati next to him, with son Ganesh. Sturdy, muscular women are so common. Costumes, common, typical of Kerala, attended by long-bearded rishis of the ages. A row of dancers, all looking in the same way, originally Jain in tradition. The Jain influence probably came after the collapse of the Vijayanagara Empire, when Jain artists migrated to Kerala and worked here for Hindus in this Padmanabhapuram Palace. Finally, a most unusual Shiva in his lingam form, white, and a face marked with eyes and a nose, even smiling. In these centuries, murals in Kerala temples, like in Tamil Nadu ones, remained highly stylized, but powerful for the devotee. We'll finish up now with 8 Nataraja images of this Chera period from various Shiva temples around Kerala, and some devotional poetry too. Some of these are very old and damaged and faded. This cosmic dance of Shiva, Ananda Tandava, dance of bliss, the cosmic cycles of creation and destruction, and the daily rhythm of birth and death. O my Lord, thy hand holding the sacred drum has made and ordered the heavens and earth and other worlds and innumerable souls. All these worlds are transformed by thy hand bearing fire. Thy sacred foot, planted on the demon of ignorance, gives an assurance to the tired soul struggling in the toils of causality. It is thy lifted foot that grants eternal bliss to those that approach thee. These 5 actions are indeed thy handiwork. We are part of this dance, this eternal rhythm. We must not detach ourselves from the dancing cosmos, this universal harmony. This universal harmony. A brief review of the chief characteristics of the best Chera murals. Technical excellence in the boldness and accuracy of lines and delicate strokes. All available space filled in with lavish ornamentation using strong colors, especially a few very bright colors. A simplicity of subjects, but refined and precise imagery. Chera bodies are large, thick, muscular, with much use of shading using the same color. Very oval faces and exaggerated eyes convey an emotional expressiveness. Fanciful fabrics, similar hairstyles. A highly stylized art with essentially graceful rhythms and yet very dramatic movements and expressions. There is never a dull moment in their theatrical world. Our last DVD will deal with a very different Rajasthani style of mural art, which was so much influenced by Muslim, that is Mughal, traditions from the 1600s to the mid-1800s. This we will see in the Grand Palace at Jaipur, in the Havalis or mansions, and in a Jain temple, and especially in the well-fortified forts of Bundi, Kota, Nagwar, Jodhpur, Jaisalmer, Junagadh, Udaipur, and Dugapur.